Good morning from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. The time is 10:35 a.m. on Saturday, the 24th of January 2026. And it's a lovely day today, but we're going to have a heat wave for the next few days. So I thought I'd take the opportunity while it's not too unbearable for myself and the birdie boys to be out in the garden. They missed out yesterday because it was too windy and too cloudy and awful, but they were keen this morning. I went, "We're going in the garden." They're like, "Yes, Mama T." So they've been out since 9 o'clock and they're very contented little birds. Very contented little birds. And I had a wonderful afternoon and evening. I got a surprise phone call from my friends Robin and Peter, and Robin said, "Are you going to be home? Are you home?" And I said, "Yes, I'm home today. I've got no plans to go anywhere." And they said, "Good, we're coming over." It was so spontaneous and lovely and such a surprise. I was so happy. And their little dog, we call her little Miss Coco. Miss Coco. She's tiny. She's about this big, little part poodle, part Shih Tzu. Sweet little doggess. I call her my doggess goddess. And anyway, she's a sweet little one. And I knew that Robin, because Peter goes off and has drinks with the boys, and then he comes and says hello later before they head off home, So it's become a bit of a tradition. Robin comes to me and he goes to his, male friends. And, we get to catch up and it's just lovely. I really enjoyed that. But anyway, I knew Robin had arrived because I heard this scratching at the door and it was little Miss Coco, all excited to see me. And so I went out and fussed over her. Then Robin said, how did she say it? She didn't say, "Shall we go for a walk?" I can't remember what she said. But however she phrased it, I can't remember how she put it, I knew she was suggesting we go for a walk with Coco. So I said, "How about we go for a walk with Coco?" "Oh yes, I'd love that. Coco will love it too." And Robin likes to walk past, Elsa's house, the house that they lived in for many years. So we could walk around the neighbourhood and we go past and have a little look. I said, "That'll happen for about 10 years and then one day you'll just get over it." She said, "How do you know?" I said, "I used to keep an interested eye on my mother's old house too, but I'm over it now." But I said, it's hard when it's a home that you were really attached to, that you grew up in. It's actually hard to detach. And I get it because I was still kind of missing my childhood home for years, many years long after I was married. And it wasn't my parents or the idyllic family life I didn't fucking have, but it was an attachment to the actual house and land and the vista of the sea. And it actually was a beautiful spot where that house was. But anyway, we had such a wonderful visit, and then we went walking around, Robin and I and little Coco. Coco's doing the little doggy sachet of happiness and stopping and peeing on things because doggies must do that, mark territory, and leave little calling cards for all the other dogs that they've been around their neighbourhood. And next thing I know, Rosie, Margot, who lives down the street, her beautiful golden retriever, and I'm very fond of Rosie too. I'm fond of all of them, but I'm fond of particularly my dog friends. And as a practice, I used to visit Rosie at least once or twice during the week because, Margot and Dave are at work and the children are at school and Rosie gets lonely. But I haven't done that for quite some months. I'm not even sure why. I just haven't been walking. So anyway, Rosie came barreling out. Oh no, before that happened, Let's get the facts straight, people of Earth. So we're walking past Margot's house, and I hear little Susie and her little friend yelling out, "Tanya, Tanya." And I look up, and they're up in their bedroom window with the window open, little girls, little faces hanging out the window. And the other little girl yells out, "I'm Susie's friend. I just wanted to say hello, Tanya." I was like, oh, that made my day. And I'm like, hello, little Susie and Susie's friend. Anyway, in the next instance, Rosie, the golden retriever, who I adore, comes barreling out, runs across the street straight to me, and little Coco, who's tiny compared to Rosie. So little Coco literally was shit herself. She was petrified. And, you know, Robin was a bit worried, and I said, no, she won't hurt Coco because she's my friend. She's actually come to see me and check Coco out because dogs do that. She said, yes, I know she's your friend, Tanya, but Coco's utterly terrified. So anyway, I call Rosie over, and I'm patting her and fussing her. And then Margot comes to get her, and she goes, "I'm so sorry." And I went, "No, you don't have to be sorry. She came to see me. It's what she does. And she's my dog friend. And I've been a terrible dog friend because I haven't visited her in months." And Margot nodded, you know. So anyway, I gave Rosie a big rub on her tummy. She was like to lie on her back and have me rub her tummy. So I gave a vigorous rub on her tummy. She's smiling with happiness. And I gave her a kiss. I don't normally kiss Rosie because Rosie's not fond of being kissed. But do you know what? She was so happy to see me that when I bent over to kiss her, she held her head still and allowed the kiss. And even Margot went, "Oh," because she knows that Rosie's not fond of kisses. Anyway, it was gorgeous. So then we continued, Robin and I and little Coco, to walk around the block and then came back. But it was just so gorgeous. It really, oh yes, when we came back, my neighbour next door to me, who I literally haven't seen anyone for months and months and months, was coming home from work, walking up the hill, and so she joined in. We had a chat with Robin and I and Tash, so that was really lovely. And then Tash was telling me she's got to split her native beehive. You're supposed to split them every few years so that they, if they get overcrowded in the hive, they turn on each other, and if there's two queens, then they compete and they'll kill each other. And she said it's actually not good, you know. So she said, "Would you like half of the hive when I split them?" She said, "I'm going to get a professional to show me what to do." I said, "I would love that. I love having bees in the garden, coming to the garden." I said, "I really enjoyed when all your bees were in my banksia tree." I said, "It was full of your bees." And I said, and that year it had the best flowers show it had ever put on, ever in its life, and it grew immensely. I said, "I don't know what the little bees did to it, but it gave it a whole new lease on life." So, so she said that I could have half of her bees, but it will depend on, they can't be too close. That's the point of splitting the hive. They can't be too close in each other's territory, so I might have to move my ones down the front as far away as possible from her hive. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I won't, get my hopes up about it because there might be conditions that I can't quite meet the criteria. And I'd also have to buy my own hive, but I said to Tash, maybe, the beekeeper might be able to sell me one at a reasonable price because they're dealing in it all the time and either make their own or buy them in, and, So I said, I don't mind buying a hive if they're not too expensive, because got to have a place for the bees to live, in suburbia. out in the wild, they just live in a hollow of a tree or something, but you do need to give them a bit of extra shelter. The only thing I worried is about the Brisbane City Council spraying poison on the verge, because that drifts and it potentially will kill all my bees like it used to kill all my hens. Which ironically I didn't even realise was happening. I just assumed my hens were dying of very unusual sudden onset illnesses, and then later on, quite some years after I stopped keeping chickens, I saw them spraying. You motherfuckers, that's what killed all my beautiful chooks, which is why I don't keep chooks anymore. So I do worry about the bees, how that will work. But you know, look, the wild birds that come to the garden seem to be surviving the last few years. I think so anyway. Yes, they're all different birds. And anyway, you've got to take that into account. Who's putting poison down that might potentially murder all your beautiful hens or bees and other viable, necessary insects for the ecology. Mr. Crow's going off. He came out before and he looked at the bath water, which I change. It should be changed daily, but I change it every 2 days. And he looked at it and he looked at me, and I knew immediately, just nothing, no words were spoken. You know, obviously they don't speak in English words, but he just looked at me, I looked at him, and I nodded, and he looked back at the water and looked at me. So I went and checked on it. It was okay, it could have gone another day, but there was little tiny bits of feathery down all across it from when they've been splashing and, you know, living their best lives. So I drained it and refilled it, and then when I refilled it, he came back and he looked at me and drank out of it, the fresh water. I was like, you clever bird, you know how to ask for things, and it's all done by body language and energy and intention. So apparently I talk bird telepathy now, and it's not really telepathy because I can physically see them and read their body language, but I found that actually quite delightful. So he's brought his baby and his mate, and he's up there cawing, and I threw some seeds down, but they're not all that fussed about the seeds. They prefer it when I throw them scraps of chicken or meat. Yeah, the turkeys haven't been to eat the seeds yet either. It doesn't matter, they'll come, you know, during the day, come and go as they please, and they'll eat when they want to eat. And I just have to remember, if they haven't eaten it, to put it away when it starts to get dark, because otherwise the possums come and they eat it all. And I don't know if it's bad for them or good for them, but don't really want to be feeding the possums with bird seed somehow. Just not sure if that's going to be copacetic for them. But the birds love it. They're really loving it. I'm glad I got up that idea of buying in wild seeds. And the little buggers, they pick out their favourite things and they leave the seeds they don't like, which is quite funny too. But I just got a face full of feather dander. He just shook it all and blew in my face. I bought the cheaper blend of wild seeds. I think it was $28, something like that. But the premium one is something like $39, so it's a fair bit more expensive. But if I can afford it, I might buy the premium blend next time. But you know, it was a 25 kilo bag, so it's going to take a while before, is it 25 or 20 kilos? Something like that. It's going to take a while before we run through them all, and it lasts a fair while. So yes, it's all good. Everything's being nurtured and fed and cared for at Sacred Space. And it was so good to see Peter and Robin and Coco catch up briefly with the neighbours. I really felt deserted and abandoned here. It's been a sick, pestilent, hopeless, awful feeling, and I've been soldiering through because, you know, in real terms I have been alone all my life, but it's just nice to have that little bit of human interaction. So it elevated my mood somewhat. Right, let us begin chapter 3, The Rose-Beetle Man. In the morning when I woke, the bedroom shutters were luminous and barred with gold from the rising sun. The morning air was full of the scent of charcoal from the kitchen fire, full of eager cock-crows, the distant yap of dogs, and the unsteady, melancholy tune of the goat bells as the flocks were driven out to pasture. We ate breakfast out in the garden under the small tangerine trees. That would be pretty, wouldn't it, having your own tangerine trees? Well, I've got a lime tree and a coffee tree, so. And a chaseberry tree. I've got lots of pretty trees in the garden that I planted. The elderberry trees as well. The bamboo. So it's all lovely. And of course, most of the trees were already here when I moved in, but I just added to the landscape. Very proud of that, actually. I was doing that when I was really mentally unwell and living on New Start, which was even less money than the disability pension, trying to feed 2 adult daughters, one of whom was just exploiting me. The other one did her best to help out. You know, Crystal, she was good. She really was good at that point in time. Did her best. But the little one was just mercenary, buying herself $2,000-$3,000 bags and not chipping in with the food and the rent and expecting me to supply her with a lifestyle even I couldn't afford for myself. Oh, it was wickedness. But anyway, what can I say? That little bit of money, whatever little bit of money I had extra left over from food or rent, and I was buying plants for the garden and putting everything into the garden because it was a good distraction. From the time my mother was put in the home, the high care facility in 2008, I just channeled all my energy into this garden. Oh, well, by then my girls had left. They left here in 2006. So I wasn't taking food out of their mouths by putting it into the garden. It was my own pension by then. And yes, I poured everything into this garden, but now, after all these years, I get to sit here and it's like having my own little resort, people of Earth. It's very lovely. We ate breakfast out into the garden under the small tangerine trees. The sky was fresh and shining, not yet the fierce blue of noon, but a clear, milky opal. The flowers were half asleep, roses dew crumpled, marigolds still tightly shut. Breakfast was, on the whole, a leisurely and silent meal, for no member of the family was very talkative at that hour. I get it. By the end of the meal, the influence of the coffee, toast and eggs made itself felt, and we started to revive, to tell each other what we intended to do, why we intended to do it, and then argue earnestly as to whether each had made a wise decision. I never joined in these discussions, for I knew perfectly well what I intended to do, and would concentrate on finishing my food as rapidly as possible. "Must you gulp and slush your food like that?" Larry would inquire in a pained voice, delicately picking his teeth with a matchstick. "Eat it slowly, dear," Mother would murmur. "There's no hurry." No hurry? With Roger waiting at the garden gate, an alert black shape watching for me with eager brown eyes? No hurry? With the first sleepy cicadas starting to fiddle experimentally among the olives? They're actually quite noisy here today. I can hear them all singing. No hurry, with the island waiting, morning cool, bright as a star, to be explored? I could hardly expect the family to understand this point of view, however, so I would slow down until I felt that their attention had been attracted elsewhere, and then stuff my mouth again. Finishing at last, I would slip from the table and saunter towards the gate, where Roger sat gazing at me with a questioning air. Together we would peer through the wrought iron gates into the olive groves beyond. I would suggest to Roger that perhaps 'twasn't worth going out today. He would wag his stump in hasty denial, and his nose would butt at my hand. "No," I would say, "I really didn't think we ought to go out." It looked as though it was going to rain, and I would peer up into the clear, burnished sky with a worried expression. Roger, ears cocked, would peer into the sky too, and then look at me imploringly. Anyway, I would go on. If it didn't look like rain now, it was almost certain to rain later, and so it would be much safer just to sit in the garden with a book. Roger, in desperation, would place a, a large black paw on the gate, and then look at me, lifting one side of his upper lip, displaying his white teeth in a lopsided, ingratiating grin, his stump working itself into a blur of excitement. This was his trump card, for he knew I could never resist his ridiculous grin. Extreme heat weather alert has been issued. That's nice. Planet Hellscape bites again. Dear goddess. So I would stop teasing him. Are we still filming? Yes. Sometimes when I get messages, it knocks us off our perch. No, we're all right. So I would stop teasing him, fetch my matchboxes and my butterfly net. The garden gate would creak open and clang shut, and Roger would be off through the olive groves, swiftly as a cloud shadow, his deep bark welcoming the new day. In those early days of exploration, Roger was my constant companion. Together we ventured farther and farther afield, discovering quiet, remote olive trees which had to be investigated and remembered, working our way through a maze of blackbird-haunted myrtles, venturing into narrow valleys where the cypress trees cast a cloak of mysterious inky shadow. He was the perfect companion for an adventure, affectionate without exuberance, brave without being belligerent, intelligent and full of good human tolerance for my eccentricities. Dogs are lovely like that, aren't they? They just love you no matter what. If I slipped when climbing a dewy, shiny bank, Roger appeared suddenly. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, yeah, I'm good, yeah.
Nice spot under the tree there.
Yeah, I got a bit sunburnt the other day even though I was in the shade.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit naughty because, you know, skin cancers and all, but I like to live dangerously.
I think Tasha had a chat to you about all the clean out we're doing.
Yeah.
Like all this old, kind of like, had all this junk under the house, just all covered in possum crap and
Oh,
old shelves that have been there for 20 years. Anyway,
it's good to have a clean out.
yeah,
It actually lifts the energy. Like when I had all my mother's stuff, at one stage I had my mother's stuff because the public trustee, you know, said I could have it all. And then my daughter, some years later in 2015, went to Ireland. So then I got slammed with all her stuff under the house. And I literally had stuff climbing the walls because it's a tiny little house. There's nowhere to put it all. Even though I've decluttered, my house is still crammed full though.
Oh, us too. Yes.
But I remember sitting there when I got rid of the quite a large amount of mum's, you know, crap that I didn't want anyway because it was just, you know, I kept the good stuff obviously, but got rid of all the nonsense stuff. And I remember actually physically feeling this weight lift off and the whole roof felt like it was 3 stories high and I could breathe, and I was walking around going, Crystal, I can breathe. And she's like, yes, Mum, decluttering, you should do it all the time.
Yeah, it's not really optional, is it?
Yeah, so I hear you're going to be building soon.
Well, hopefully.
Oh,
Well, that's the plan. We're talking to a builder, but you know, it depends what we can afford. So we think we can, but we don't know until they give us the prices and we've got to change stuff.
yeah, well, you've got to know where you stand.
We spoke.
So what are you going to do? You're going to lift it up or you're going to bulldoze?
This is the problem. We talked to 5 different removal companies, and they said it's not viable to remove the house.
What? But they used to move houses all the time.
I know. Well, we had friends around the corner who had the same thing. They had removalists say, "Yep, we'll do it," and then they renege. The
What?
problem is they've got a lot of houses in stock already, and this isn't an easy one because the other side of it is boxed, like they enclosed the dining room and the veranda.
Right,
That makes it wider, which means they need to cut it 3 pieces instead of 2,
right,
which means 3 trucks instead of 2,
right.
which means 50% higher transport costs.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
50% higher cost reconnecting at the other end, and then have to strip the asbestos out, which costs money. And the other problem is the Ponciana tree here. Like, don't get me wrong, we love it.
Oh, yeah.
We want to keep it.
You're gonna
We
keep
said
it.
That would have to go.
So you could move the house out.
And even if you wanted to take it out, we don't. The council may not let you. And on top of that, this tree here overhangs the street. They have to literally chop off one of those branches. So it's a narrow street. And they said, look, I'm really sorry, but it's just not going to work. And
Oh.
I said to them, what if we don't want any money for the house? We take it away for free. And he said, sorry.
costs them too much
Like,
money.
I had 3 people come on site. I spoke to 5 different, because we didn't want to demolish. So what we're going to do is we're going with some people who will try to, they'll try to recycle as much as possible, salvage stuff and resell it.
Right.
So at least it's not, I know, it's really sad. We didn't want to do that.
Yeah, it is a shame, but you know what? A whole fresh house is going to be nice.
Well, it will, but the plan was always to lift and then build under.
Yeah, that's what a few houses down here did, and I think that's a great idea.
But then we started talking to builders and people who've done it, and they said, look, to be honest, the cost involved
It's
so
mad.
complicated. And we'd have to strip out all the electrics, redo the plumbing. We have to redo.
Well, then you might as well just get a whole new house, because you're going to have to go through all that anyway. The only thing I'm disappointed is I have to deal with the noise from this one. It's still finishing, and then I'm going to have yours, and I'm like, because it's been like 20 years of houses being ripped down all around me. But you know what? It's life. Life is progress. If I won lotto, I'd probably knock mine down and put a much bigger house on and a swimming pool up the back too. But
The really nice thing is there's so many families here now, young kids. It's really nice.
yeah. Well, your girls are nearly grown up though. How old are your girls now?
13 to 15.
Oh, well, that's not grown up. Where did I get that idea from? I thought they were a bit older.
Home probably 10 years yet.
Well, you think so, but you'd be surprised. Mine were out by 20 and 19, but you know, we had a lot of we weren't getting along.
Aga's very clingy.
Well, no, there's nothing wrong with that. It shows you're a good dad. Good dads are clingy. They want their girls safe and they want them at home where you can keep an eye on them. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the old country, darling, the old country.
So when we build, like we're hoping, fingers crossed, we can maybe start middle of the year. And we're hoping to move into Tasha's brother's place on Sapphire Street,
Yes.
which is,
Is it empty at the moment?
no, but the lease ends in the middle of the year.
Well, that's a great idea.
So,
That's a great idea, because then you've got accommodation while that's all happening, and
yeah.
also you're not that far to keep an eye on all the works.
Anyway, well, we'll see.
I'm happy to hear that.
Fingers crossed, right? We're still trying to get there. But
Well, I hope you do it, because you know it's. But I like your house, but it's nice to upgrade. You know, if people can afford it, you do it. Why not? You're working. What are you working for?
well, that's the
know.
thing, right? Well, we've been saving. Like, ever since we bought this, we've been saving bit by bit. So, we'll still need a big mortgage, but, you know.
Yeah, that's a worry. You don't want too big a mortgage, because you've got to take into account as you get older.
I know.
Because you're still young, but you know, in 15, 20 years, if you're still working like a bloody Trojan, paying off mortgages. Yeah.
It was always the plan to do something, whether it was build.
Yeah, you've been talking about it for a long time, so.
It feels very small with one bathroom with 2 teenage girls, let me tell you.
Oh,
It's chaos.
well, you know, my bathroom's shitty too. All the constantly walk around going, why did I end up poor? I could have had a decent bathroom. And then I really fantasize, because you know, you got to, when you're imagining and manifesting, you got to upgrade, right? And I so, oh dear universe, can't you just let me win lotto so I can have a massive big bathroom with a step-in spa pool? How would I afford the electricity for that? I'd have to really win a massive lotto. But it makes me laugh, my imaginings. And then I imagine myself, you know, walking down like this goddess into this fabulous spa bath. And then I think, how long would that last? It'd be a novelty for about a week and I'd be over it.
No, you're right, you're exactly right.
But it's nice to dream, you know.
Yeah.
I had a contractor come one time from housing. That's right, he was putting in the last oven. Anyway, he stepped out in the garden. He was a very friendly, garrulous, lovely man, actually. And then he just pointed to this whole back section here and he said, you're waiting to get a swimming pool. I said, how do you know? He said, you've left the perfect space.
I know.
And I said, I've been manifesting it for 10 fucking years. Never happened, but you know what? You've got to imagine.
One other thing, Tash said
Yes. And I want to thin out my beautiful black bamboo of all the old dead or the grey ugly bits and just thin it out because it's all grown too close together.
I've got a little battery operated chainsaw.
Okay.
That'll do the trick. So I'll help you out.
Oh, thank you so much, Warren, because I've actually been trying to manifest it, worrying what I'm going to do. Yeah.
I'll give you a bell sometime
Yeah.
in the next few weeks, and we'll sort something out.
Yeah, there's no rush. It's comping. It's been doing that for years, so. But I just think it needs to be thinned out a bit, so it can breathe and put up new shoots. You know. I'm all about everything breathing and elevating and upgrading. So.
All right.
Okay.
Put some more rubbish in here.
All right. You take care. I'm reading to YouTube, so I'll carry on.
You do that.
Yeah, I'm not just muttering to myself, which I do, guilty as charged.
Don't worry. Not the only one.
Right, I think we broke off at good humoured tolerance for my eccentricities, and I was saying how dogs love you no matter what, which is true. I'm actually considering getting another dog. I thought maybe I'll go to the RSPCA and just buy a rescue dog of some dog that someone's had to relinquish because of old age or, God forbid, death or something. Give some lovely animal a chance at, a nice life. But I'm hesitant because I've lost so many cats here and dogs, and then last year losing Charlie, and the little birdie boys I've got now, they're quite healthy and happy, but they wouldn't be happy if I brought a dog into the house. But I'm just thinking about it because I miss having a dog or a cat and a mammalian furry animal to snuggle up to at night. But then it's a bit selfish to take on a dog or a cat when the vet bills are enormous, and most of it, not all, but most of them in my experience over the last 20-30 years have been quite cold and mercenary and just only caring about the money, really. There were a few good ones I had. I had a wonderful vet when I had my Dalmatian when I was still married, so we're talking, more than 31 years ago. He was a lovely man, that vet. But most of the other vets that I've encountered have not been very nice at all, quite frankly. So it puts me off getting a dog because you need to be constantly having them on flea and tick treatment, which kills them ultimately with the poisons too. And I'm hesitant. I just don't want to have my heart broken like I broke when Beauregard died too, because Beauregard was like my little soulmate, But anyway, I'm thinking about it, very, very cautiously thinking about it. Anyway, yes, so we'll continue on. If I slipped when climbing a dew-shiny bank, Roger appeared suddenly, gave a snort that sounded like suppressed laughter, a quick look over, a rapid lick of commiseration, shook himself, sneezed, and gave me his lopsided grin. They really do grin at you like that, dogs. Rosie had that lopsided grin yesterday too. If I found something that interested me, an ant's nest, Spirit just yelled out, that's because of the shape of their teeth and their jaw. Yes, that's quite correct. If I found something that interested me, an ant's nest, a caterpillar on a leaf, a spider wrapping up a fly in swaddling clothes of silk, Roger sat down and waited until I had finished examining it. If he thought I was taking too long, he shifted nearer, gave a gentle whiny yawn, and then sighed deeply and started to wag his tail. If the matter was of no great importance, we would move on. But if it was something absorbing that had to be pored over, I had only to frown at Roger, and he would realise it was going to be a long job. His ears would droop, his tail slow down and stop, and he would slouch off to the nearest bush and fling himself down in the shade, giving me a martyred look as he did so. During these trips, Roger and I came to know and be known by a great number of people in various parts of the surrounding countryside. There was, for example, a strange, mentally defective youth with a round face as expressionless as a puffball. He was always dressed in tattered shirt, shiny blue serge trousers that were rolled up to the knee, and on his head the elderly remains of a bowler hat without a brim. Whenever he saw us, he came hurrying through the olives, raised his absurd hat politely, and wished us a good day in a voice as childish and sweet as a flute. He would stand watching us without expression, nodding at any remark I happened to make for 10 minutes or so. Then, raising his hat politely, he would go off through the trees. And there was the immensely fat and cheerful Agati, who lived in a tiny tumble-down cottage high up the hill. She was always sitting outside her house with a spindle of sheep's wool, twining and pulling it into coarse thread, i.e. spinning wool, people of Earth. I've got 2 spindles, but I haven't mastered the art of using them yet. But I did learn how to spin on my spinning wheel, which I'm very proud of, people of Earth. I finished off balling that lovely fleece that I did last week. I've still got enough alpaca in the pillowcase, I think, maybe for one more or possibly 2 more balls of wool. So I've done well. I've used up all that alpaca. I really enjoyed working with it too. It's so soft and yes, long fibres and feels almost like silk to touch. It was lovely to, a lovely texture feel to it when you're working with it. I'm actually considering, I guess I'd have to unroll the wool though because I've balled it all up, but I'm considering dyeing some of it because I've got 5 big massive balls of wool like this big from all that alpaca. Well, there'll be possibly 6 or 7 when I finish with what's in the bag, what's in the pillowcase. I store all my beautiful sheep's fleece in cotton pillowcases or cotton bags so it can breathe, and don't like keeping it in plastic. I did read somewhere that it's best to keep it in cotton bags, you know, especially in this dreadfully hot climate where things get to be mouldy and mildewy, you know, from the suppression, oppression, depression, compression, and not enough airflow. You need to breathe, people of Earth. You need to breathe. You need to feel free and abundant and blessed. So there is that. She must have been well over 70, but her hair was still black and lustrous, plaited carefully and wound round a pair of polished cow's horns, an ornament that some of the older peasant women adopted. Trying to imagine how that must look. As she sat in the sun like a great black toad with a scarlet headdress draped over the cow's horns, the bobbin of wool would rise and fall, twisting like a top, her fingers busy unravelling and plucking, and her drooping mouth with its hedge of broken and discoloured teeth wide open as she sang loudly and harshly, but with great vigour. It was from Agati that I learned some of the most beautiful and haunting of the peasant songs. Sitting on an old tin in the sun, eating grapes or pomegranates from her garden, I would sing with her, and she would break off now and then to correct my pronunciation. We sang verse by verse the gay, rousing song of the river, Evangelio, and of how it dropped from the mountains, making the gardens rich, the fields fertile, and the trees heavy with fruit. I feel like I'm there right now. Does sound beautiful, doesn't it? We sang, rolling our eyes at each other in exaggerated coquetry, the funny little love song called Falsehood. Lies, lies, we warbled, shaking our heads. All lies, but it is my fault for teaching you to go round the countryside telling people I love you. Oh, a bit close to the bone there, isn't it? Never mind. Love is the law, love under rule. Love finds its own way, its own rhythms, its own people, its own true, ardent, devoted lover. In time, in time. Dear goddess. But anyway, try not to think about that. And then we would strike a mournful note and sing, perhaps, the slow, lilting song called Why Are You Leaving Me? We were almost overcome by this one and would wail out the long, soulful lyrics, our voices quavering. When we came to the last bit, the most heart-rending of all, Agati would clasp her hands to her great breasts. Her black eyes would become misty and sad, and her chin would tremble with emotion. Well, what can you do? All that slack skin wobbling. Got to tighten my neck muscles. Will it work? Probably not. I also need to lose about 30 kilos. Maybe 35 now, by all the gods. I made a cheesecake some weeks ago. It was delicious. I devoured the whole lot, gained 5 kilos. That's all it took. One cheesecake, one hell loop. Am I really that mad at myself? No. It's one of those things, but I do need to get walking every day. I need to put a rocker under my ass and make myself walk more, because it's amazing how quickly the weight piles on just from not dancing anymore and not walking. Very bad, Mama T. Very, very bad indeed. But yes, I haven't been all that well either, so there is that. I mean, mentally as well as physically. It's been a bit of a spiraling of conjunction and things all bubbling to the surface and being brought to the head, and then you have to really dervish it and flick it all off, people of Earth. Right, well, I segued at chins trembling with emotion because I'm a bit self-conscious about my double chins. I've always had a double chin, but I seem to be doing weird things actually, kind of waddling, getting a waddle like my old father, which was not attractive, by the way. But it's age, isn't it? Happens to us all. Mustn't beat myself up too much about it. Someone will love me, waddle and all. Wiggle, wiggle, wobble, wobble, waddle, waddle. Not! Oh, you have to laugh. As the last discordant notes of our duet faded away, she would turn to me, wiping her nose on the corner of her headdress. What fools we are, eh? What fools, sitting here in the sun singing, and of love too. I am too old for it, and you are too young, and yet we waste our time singing about it. Ah, well, let's have a glass of wine, eh? Apart from Agati, the person I liked best was the old shepherd Yanni, a tall, slouching man with a great hooked nose like an eagle's and incredible moustaches. Surely he means one moustache. Anyway, I first met him one hot afternoon when Roger and I had spent an exhausting hour trying to dig a large green lizard out of its hole in a stone wall. At length, unsuccessful, sweaty and tired, we had flung ourselves down beneath 5 little cypress trees that cast a neat square of shadow on the sun-bleached grass. Lying there, I heard the gentle, drowsy tinkling of a goat bell, and presently the herds wandered past us, pausing to stare with vacant yellow eyes, bleat sneeringly, and then move on. The soft sound of their bells and of their mouths ripping and tearing at the undergrowth had a soothing effect on me, and by the time they had drifted slowly past and the shepherd appeared, I was nearly asleep. Am I still in some shade? It's deceptive, people of Earth. Deceptive. The sun on my chest, I can tell by the brightness of my top. But I've got a t-shirt on underneath, so I won't get burnt through that. It's just my face and my neck I have to worry about. Right. Sorry, the soft sound of their bells and of their mouths ripping and tearing at the undergrowth had a soothing effect on me, and by the time they had drifted slowly past and the shepherd appeared, hello butterfly, flew right over my head. I was nearly asleep. He stopped and looked at me, leaning heavily on his brown olive wood stick, his little black eyes fierce under his shaggy brows, his big boots planted firmly in the heather. Good afternoon, he greeted me gruffly. You are the foreigner, the little English lord? By then I was used to the curious peasant idea that all English people were lords, and I admitted that that's who I was. He turned and roared at a goat which had reared onto its hind legs and was tearing at a young olive, and then turned back. I will tell you something, little lord, he said. It is dangerous for you to lie here beneath these trees. I glanced up at the cypresses, but they seemed safe enough to me, and so I asked why he thought they were dangerous. Ah, you may sit under them, yes. They cast a good shadow, cold as well water, but that's the trouble. They tempt you to sleep, and you must never, for any reason, sleep beneath a cypress. I've never heard that before. Was he winding him up, or was it a fairy? Is it fairy lore? Must be fairy lore. I'm just making an assumption here. It's not like drop bears or snakes are going to throw themselves out of a cypress in Greece. But then, are there snakes in Greece? Possibly. I don't know. There's plenty of bloody snakes in Australia, I can tell you that for one thing. I haven't seen any around lately, which doesn't mean anything. They're probably traversing the garden at night. The last one was when I was heading to the Stones Corner Hotel, and it was shimmying up my garden near my steps. Actually, I got a bit of a fright, so close to where I was stepping down. What night was that? 2nd or 3rd of December, if I remember correctly. It might have been the end of November. Anyway, that was the last one. But I know they're around, because Australia, mate, Australia. Kermie's eating his banana, dried banana. He's thrown his corn on the floor of his cage, but he's a happy boy. You happy boy, Kermie? What about you, little Bo? He says, we're hot, Mama T, we need a spritz. He didn't say that. I said that for him. But I think they're a bit hot. You want a spritz? Do you want a spritz, boys? All right, I'm coming in with the spritzing. You ready? Okay, give them a bit of warning now. It's only fair, isn't it? Fair warning. You're going to get blasted with cool water and you don't like it that much, but it gives you a bit of a refresh. A refreshing sesh. There we go. Is that lovely, my little Kermie? It's not that hot today, but it's humid. Right. You now have to shake it off. Shake it all off. No? No shaking it off? Okay. Do you want more spritzing on the tummy? Kermie's like, stop it, Mama T, stop it. He shook it off then. Good boy. Is that nice? Yes. Mama might give herself a little bit of a spritz. There's not much water left in this. Yeah, it's empty now. Damn it. I've put the last of the water on you boys. Thank you, Mama T. Right. He paused, stroked his moustache, waited for me to ask why, and then went on. Why? Why? Because if you did, you would be changed when you woke. Yes, the black cypresses, they are dangerous. While you sleep, their roots grow into your brains and steal them. And when you wake up, you are mad, head as empty as a whistle. I asked whether it was only the cypress that could do this, or did it apply to other trees. No, only the cypress, said the old man, peering up fiercely at the trees above me, as though to see whether they were listening. Only the cypress is the thief of intelligence. So be warned, little lord, and don't sleep here. Well, it's a bit of a Debbie Downer, isn't it? It's nice to sleep under a tree. Can't remember the last time I did it, but it's very nice to be under a tree. Oh, well, I'm under a tree now. Frangipani just said, what am I, Scotch mist? Yes, but I'm not sleeping under you, am I? I slept under you the other day, I do remember now, on my hammock stand. In my hammock, I fell asleep. So when I say the other day, it was a few weeks ago. And when I sleep under or rest under the golden rain tree over here, this one, I get communication or visions or messages from either the dryads in the tree or from the tree itself or from spirit. That one does communicate, kept me very tuned in all during the early COVIDian madness in the 2022, 2023 actually. I haven't slept under it for a long time. Not for any particular reason, there's no acrimony between that tree and I. But it's a lovely tree, but it enhances my psychic abilities somewhat, which is a bit astonishing. Is it because of the tree itself, its own spirit, or is it that type of tree? I have no idea. Oh, Kermie's trying to bath in his drinking bowl again. There's his bath here, and he's up here, look at him, trying to squeeze in his little water bowl. No, Kermie, that's not your bath. That's your bath down there. He doesn't get it. He just doesn't understand about bathing. You're trying to dream the impossible dream, Kermie, like your mother with her swimming pool and the spa bath she'll probably never have. Oh, dear goddess. Oh, dear goddess. Don't cry for me, Argentina. It's the cutest thing watching him try and squeeze himself into that little bowl. You funny boy. The funny boy. My handsome boy. There he goes again. He sticks his head right in, wets his head at least. Oh, poor Kermie. Use your bath, then you can put your whole body in and have a proper splish splash. Yes. Yes, Kermie. I wonder if I should put like a little ping pong ball in his bath to entice him to float around in that. He doesn't seem to know what it's for, but he'll drink out of it. So, oh, my skin cancers are stinging today. I need to go. Absolutely need to go. I think I'll take myself off sometime during the week. That one on my back, underneath my base of my back of my neck, really needs seeing to. What a life. All right, he's getting very agitated. Is there a change in the weather coming, Kermie? Is it going to rain? Is it going to be an earthquake? He's pacing up and down like he did when there was an earthquake. All right, calm down. It's all good, Kermie. It's all good. He nodded briefly and gave another fierce glance at the dark blades of the cypress, as if daring them to make some comment, and then picked his way carefully through the myrtle bushes to where his goats grazed, scattered about the hill, their great udders swinging like bagpipes beneath their bellies. I got to know Yanni very well, for I was always meeting him during my explorations, and occasionally I visited him in his little house, when he would ply me with fruit and give me advice and warnings to keep me safe on my walks. Perhaps one of the most weird and fascinating characters I met during my travels was the Rose-Beetle man. He had a fairy tale air about him that was impossible to resist, and I used to look forward eagerly to my infrequent meetings with him. I first saw him on a high, lonely road leading to one of the remote mountain villages. I could hear him long before I could see him, for he was playing a rippling tune on a shepherd's pipe, breaking off now and then to sing a few words in a curious nasal voice. As he rounded the corner, both Roger and I stopped and stared at him in amazement. He had a sharp fox-like face with large slanting eyes of such a dark brown that they appeared black. They had a weird, vacant look about them, and a sort of bloom such as one finds on a plum, a pearly covering, almost like a cataract. He was short and slight, with a thinness about his wrists and neck that argued a lack of food. His dress was fantastic, and on his head was a shapeless hat with a very wide floppy brim. What's the matter, little Kermie? You're so agitated. I guess you haven't been doing much the last few days. You've been unnaturally quiet for the last few days. Yes, Kermie, there's a change coming in the weather and it's not going to be good. It's going to be scathingly, insufferably, life-threateningly hot. But we'll get through it like we get through every other day here on planet Earth. One breath at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time. And thank God for the air conditioner. Mummy will have to probably sleep in the lounge, bring you in the lounge, and we'll have to sleep in the lounge together. Which means I won't be able to put on the TV because it'll be too disturbing for them. Ah, well. I don't have earphones for my reasonably new iPhone 16. I must buy some because that way I could just watch Netflix or something on my iPhone, have the earphones, and then they wouldn't get disturbed by the noise. And we could all share that space in the air conditioning without disturbing each other. That's a good idea, isn't it? Why didn't I think about that before? I'm a bit slow sometimes to work things out. So, his dress was fantastic, and on his head was a shapeless hat with a very wide floppy brim. It had once been bottle green, but was now speckled and smeared with dust, wine stains and cigarette burns. In the band was stuck a fluttering forest of feathers. Cock feathers, hoopoe feathers, owl feathers, the wing of a kingfisher, the claw of a hawk. Ooh, that's big magic right there, baby girls and baby boys. The kingfisher and the hawk especially. And a large dirty white feather that may have come from a swan. His shirt was worn and frayed, grey with sweat, and round the neck dangled an enormous cravat of the most startling blue satin. His coat was dark and shapeless, with patches of different hues here and there. On the sleeve, a bit of white cloth with a design of rosebuds. On the shoulder, a triangular patch of wine red and white spots. The pockets of this garment bulged, the contents almost spilling out, combs, balloons, little highly coloured pictures of the saints, olive wood carvings of snakes, camels, dogs and horses, cheap mirrors, a riot of handkerchiefs, and long twisted rolls of bread decorated with seeds. His trousers, patched like his coat, drooped over a pair of scarlet charuhias. I don't know how to pronounce that, people of Earth. Sound wonderful though. Leather shoes with upturned toes, decorated with a large black and white pompon. I love wonderful shoes, including men's shoes. I'm very impressed. There's one of the bands, one of the men, well, a few of the men in the bands actually, but one particular man, Mike Beale, his band, Mike Beale Band, Mike Beale wears the most spectacular shoes. Sometimes they're snakeskin, sometimes got a pair that are red, look like red velvet. I'm trying to think of the other shoes he's had. That man has the most exquisite taste when it comes to shoes. I just always point to his shoes and I go, and he nods back. And Woody, last time I went to one of his gigs, I don't go to his gigs very often, but he had the most spectacular shoes on too. And I was like, well, show business, you know, you've got to present yourself, and if you can afford it, why wouldn't you wear exquisite shoes, people of Earth? It's half the fun of being up on stage. Everyone admiring your beautiful style and your attitude and your charisma. It's nice to present yourself too in a way that's a bit quirky and at times a bit audacious and ostentatious. I do it too. When I wear my top hat with my feathers and my Viking brooch and my corset and my bikey boots. I never did afford those Christian Louboutin boots, but baby, just the thought of that got me going for quite a few weeks there. The fantasy of the wonderful boots. Well, inside those boots, you're still barefoot and naked and carefree, and inside of the flesh suit, you're still just a spirit trying to navigate your way through this life on planet Earth, and so naked and sacred we stand upon our Mother Earth. But if you're going to dress yourself up with fripperies, dress yourself up. Anyway, I like the sound of his fabulous boots. His shoes, rather. This extraordinary character carried on his back bamboo cages full of pigeons and young chickens, several mysterious sacks, and a large bunch of fresh green leeks. With one hand he held his pipe to his mouth, and in the other a number of lengths of cotton, to each of which was tied an almond-sized rose-beetle. Have I ever seen such a thing? Don't think so. Glittering golden green in the sun, all of them flying round his hat with desperate deep buzzings, trying to escape from the threads tied firmly round their waists. Occasionally, tired of circling round and round without success, one of the beetles would settle for a moment on his hat before launching itself once more on its endless merry-go-round. When he saw us, the rose-beetle man stopped, gave a very exaggerated start, and doffed his ridiculous hat and swept us a low bow. Roger was so overcome by this unlooked-for attention that he let out a volley of surprised barks. The man smiled at us, put on his hat again, raised his hands and waggled his long bony fingers at me. Amused and rather startled by this apparition, I politely bade him good day. He gave another courtly bow. I asked him if he had been to some fiesta. He nodded his head vigorously, raised his pipe to his lips, Oh, I was thinking of the other kind of pipe. Don't mind me. And played a lilting little tune on it. Pranced a few steps in the dust of the road, and then stopped and jerked his thumb over his shoulder, pointing back the way he had come. He smiled, patted his pockets, and rubbed his forefinger and thumb together in the Greek way of expressing money. I suddenly realised that he must be dumb. By that he means mute. So standing in the middle of the road, I carried on a conversation with him, and he replied with a varied and very clever pantomime. I asked what the rose-beetles were for, and why he had them tied with pieces of cotton. Mr. Crow's having a bath, a splish and a splash, and a drink in the fresh water, for which he is very appreciative. Very appreciative indeed. I should put my feet in the water too while I read to you. But then I'd have to have the chair out in the hot sun. I guess for 5 minutes wouldn't be so bad, would it? It's very tempting. Very tempting. He held his hand out to denote small boys, took one of the lengths of cotton from which a beetle hung, and whirled it rapidly round his head. Immediately the insect came to life and started on its planet-like circling of his hat, and he beamed at me. Pointing up at the sky, he stretched his arms out and gave a deep nasal buzzing, while he banked and swooped across the road. Aeroplane. Any fool could see that. Then he pointed to the beetles, held out his hand to denote children, and whirled his stock of beetles round his head so that they all started to buzz peevishly. Exhausted by his explanation, he sat down by the edge of the road, played a short tune on his flute, breaking off to sing in his curious nasal voice. They were not articulate words he used, but a series of strange gruntings and tenor squeaks that appeared to be formed at the back of his throat and expelled through his nose. He produced them, however, with such verve and such wonderful facial expressions that you were convinced the curious sounds really meant something. Presently he stuffed his flute into a bulging pocket and gazed at me reflectively for a moment, and then swung a small sack off his shoulder, undid it, and, to my delight and astonishment, tumbled 6 tortoises onto the dusty road. Their shells had been polished with oil until they shone, and, by means or other, he had managed to decorate their front legs with little red bows. What are you doing with your beaks? You're doing it too now, Kermie. There's a big crack on the side of his beak and you're constantly rubbing it against the perches. I don't think that's normal. They seem quite happy with that, but it seems a bit psychotic to me, scratching at your own beak that you've got to feed with. I suppose it's no difference to people biting their own fingernails though, is it? I mean, it's just keratin, isn't it? I'm being a helicopter mother, aren't I? Helicopter mother. Right. Slowly and ponderously, they unpacked their heads and legs from their gleaming shells and set off down the road doggedly and without enthusiasm. I watched them, fascinated. The one that particularly took my fancy was quite a small one with a shell about the size of a teacup. It seemed more sprightly than the others, and its shell was a paler colour, chestnut, caramel and amber. What are you doing, Kermie? Stop that. You're going to hurt yourself. Honestly. Good boy. Good listening, Kermie. Good listening. He says, you're trying to turn me into a human, Mama T, and I am a bird, and I do bird things. So do not put your human expectations upon my being, for I am not you, and you are not me. And yet we are somehow connected by virtue of the cosmos and soul. 2 crows are here to swim now. Oh, 3. You brought the family, did you, my love? That's very nice. And the turkeys are here to eat. It's all happening at sacred space. I'm going to capture this quick. He's sitting on the edge of the rake handle. Can you see it? And it was like a seesaw bouncing up and down. That's why I laughed. Are you a funny bird? Are you a funny birdie? Ah, they're all getting very activated too, like Kermie was before. Tells me there's a storm of some kind coming. It's not predicted, but change in the weather. Oh, Turkey chased the crow away from his bowl of seeds. That wasn't very nice, Turkey. It's for everybody, not just for you. Oh well. That's that female with the battered tail feathers. So let her eat. She's got enough problems going on right now with all the boy birds. By the gods. It's a worry, isn't it? Nature and how everything has to find a way to survive. I thought it was sweet Warren saying he's going to keep his girls home till they're 25. And when I said, I think you'll find you'll be lucky to get them to stay home that long, he was like, but I'm clingy. And that's when I said it's the old country, because his father comes from Poland, like my mother's family came from Poland too. My husband's family were Polish as well. Yes, the old Slavic ideas, keep your kids home as long as possible. But then you don't want to keep them home so long that they don't ever leave the nest or learn how to cope as independent men and women, you know. It's a fine balance you've got to achieve. Give them the wings to fly, but a home that they know they can always come back to. Look Look at you two. Baby Crow's hasn't quite worked out how to get in the swimming pool. He fell over. Use your wings, you mad bird. What are you doing? You really are a child. He's trying to drink out of a bath. Go on then. What's the problem? Why can't you get in there? So the parent birds hopped up to show him what to do. That's it. You just follow your dad. Oh, bless. Fell down. It's a bit of a worry, actually. Doesn't seem able to... Is it that he can't use his wings properly? What's going on? Just walks round and round the blue paddling pool. I'll show you. It's a bit cray-cray. There he goes. What are you doing, my love? Come on. We're reading Gerald Durrell about all the funny animals, and then you're the funniest bird of them all. You can fly because you hopped up there. What's the hesitation about the water? Are you scared you'll melt, my love? It's just water, nothing else is in it. Well, tap water, it's fluoride, it's pesticides, there's other people's psych meds. So try not to think about it or you'll never drink again. Right, you gonna have a swim? Go on, you go have a swim. Mummy and Daddy have had swims. Come on, you silly bird. He looks full grown, but he's still young. I can tell by his level of stupidity. Oh, bless. Yeah, look, he's scared to hop up. He's scared to hop up. Do I have to build a ramp for you? Oh, well, he'll work it out. I could make a little ramp for him, but honestly, that's not teaching him to be resilient and resourceful, is it? Sometimes you need to have a little bit of struggle in life just so you can navigate through the vicissitudes that life will bring you ultimately, sooner or later. Right. Got very distracted by that crow. He's sitting on the edge of the rake handle again. Crazy little bird. He still gets fed by his parents too. Yes, I know. I see them still feeding you. He's showing me there's something wrong with his foot. He's not all that comfortable. Back he flew onto the rake handle. It's like a seesaw. He's loving it. He's living his best life. Right, where were we? Oh yes, the tortoise shell that was a paler colour, chestnut, caramel and amber. Its eyes were bright and its walk was as alert as any tortoise's could be. I sat contemplating it for a long time. I convinced myself that the family would greet its arrival at the villa with tremendous enthusiasm, even perhaps congratulating me on finding such an elegant specimen. The fact that I had no money on me did not worry me in the slightest, for I would simply tell the man to call at the villa for payment the next day. It never occurred to me that he might not trust me. The fact that I was English was sufficient, for the islanders had a love and respect for the Englishman out of all proportion to his worth. They would trust an Englishman where they would not trust each other. It's a bit astonishing, isn't it? Well, I won't comment on that. Just saying. I asked the Rose-Beetle man the price of the little tortoise. He held up both hands, fingers spread out. However, I hadn't watched the peasants transacting business for nothing. I shook my head firmly and held up 2 fingers, unconsciously imitating the man. He closed his eyes in horror at the thought and held up 9 fingers. I held up 3. He shook his head and after some thought held up 6 fingers. I in turn shook my head and held up 5. The Rose-Beetle man shook his head and sighed deeply and sorrowfully. So we sat in silence and stared at the tortoises crawling heavily and uncertainly about the road with the curious, graceless determination of babies. Presently the Rose-Beetle man indicated the little tortoise and held up 6 fingers again. I shook my head and held up 5. Roger yawned loudly. He was thoroughly bored by the silent bargaining. The Rose-Beetle man picked up the reptile and showed me in pantomime how smooth and lovely its shell was, how erect its head, how pointed its nails. I remained implacable. He shrugged, handed me the tortoise, and held up 5 fingers. Then I told him I had no money and that he would have to come the next day to the villa, and he nodded as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Excited by owning this new pet, I wanted to get back home as quickly as possible in order to show it to everyone, so I said goodbye and thanked him and hurried off along the road. When I reached the place where I had to cut down through the olive groves, I stopped and examined my acquisition carefully. He was undoubtedly the finest tortoise I had ever seen and worth, in my opinion, at least twice what I had paid for him. I patted his scaly head with my finger and placed him carefully in my pocket. Before diving down the hillside, I glanced back. The Rose-Beetle man was still in the same place on the road, but he was doing a little jig, prancing and swaying, his flute warbling, while in the road at his feet the tortoises ambled to and fro, dimly and heavily. The new arrival was duly christened Achilles and turned out to be a most intelligent and lovable beast, possessed of a peculiar sense of humour. At first he was tethered by a leg in the garden, but as he grew tamer, we let him go where he pleased. He learned his name in a very short time, and we had only to call out once or twice, and then wait patiently for a while, and he would appear, lumbering along the narrow cobbled paths on tiptoe, his head and neck stretched out. eagerly. He loved being fed. Well, who doesn't? And would squat regally in the sun while we held out bits of lettuce, dandelions, or grapes for him. He loved grapes as much as Roger did. You're not supposed to give grapes to dogs. I know that much. Beauregard used to steal a grape from me occasionally, though. They do like them because they're sweet. But yes. He loved grapes as much as Roger did, so there was always great rivalry. Achilles would sit mumbling the grapes in his mouth, the juice running down his chin, and Roger would lie nearby, watching him with agonized eyes, his mouth drooling saliva. Roger always had his fair share of the fruit, but even so, he seemed to think it a waste to give such delicacies to a tortoise. When the feeding was over, if I didn't keep an eye on him, Roger would creep up to Achilles and lick his front vigorously in an attempt to get the grape juice that the reptile had dribbled down himself. Achilles, affronted at such a liberty, would snap at Roger's nose, and then, when the licks became too overpowering and moist, he would retreat into his shell with an indignant wheeze and refuse to come out until we had removed Roger from the scene, which I think is reasonable for a tortoise. But the fruit that Achilles liked best were wild strawberries. He would become positively hysterical at the mere sight of them, lumbering to and fro, craning his head to see if you were going to give him any, gazing at you pleadingly with his tiny shoe-button eyes. The very small strawberries he could devour at a gulp, for they were only the size of a fat pea. But if you gave him a big one, say the size of a hazelnut, he behaved in a way that I had never seen another tortoise emulate. He would grab the fruit and, holding it firmly in his mouth, would stumble off at top speed until he reached a safe and secluded spot among the flower beds, where he would drop the fruit and then eat it at leisure, returning for another one when he had finished. As well as developing a passion for strawberries, Achilles also developed a passion for human company. Let anyone come into the garden to sit and sunbathe, to read, or for any other reason, and before long there would be a rustling among the sweet williams, and Achilles's wrinkled and earnest face would be poked through. If you were sitting in a chair, he contented himself with getting as close to your feet as possible, and there he would sink into a deep and peaceful sleep, his head drooping out of his shell, his nose resting on the ground. If, however, you were lying on a rug sunbathing, Achilles would be convinced that you were lying on the ground, simply in order to provide him with amusement. He would surge down the path and onto the rug with an expression of bemused good humour on his face. He would pause, survey you thoughtfully, and then choose a portion of your anatomy on which to practice mountaineering. Suddenly, to have the sharp claws of a determined tortoise embedded in your thigh as he tries to lever himself up onto your stomach is not conducive to relaxation. If you shook him off and moved the rug, it would only give you temporary respite, for Achilles would circle the garden grimly until he found you again. This habit became so tiresome that, after many complaints and threats from the family, I had to lock him up whenever we lay in the garden. Then one day the garden gate was left open and Achilles was nowhere to be found. Search parties were immediately organised, and the family, who up till then had spent most of their time openly making threats against the reptile's life, wandered about the olive groves shouting, "Achilles! Strawberries! Achilles! Achilles! Strawberries!" At length we found him, ambling along in his usual detached manner. He had fallen into a disused well, the wall of which had long since disintegrated, and the mouth of which was almost covered by ferns. He was, to our regret, quite dead. Even Leslie's attempts at artificial respiration and Margot's suggestion of forcing strawberries down his throat to give him, as she explained, something to live for, failed to get any response. So mournfully and solemnly his corpse was buried in the garden under a small strawberry plant, Mother's suggestion. Oh, I'm sad now because I used to try and keep pet little turtles. I had 3. One died, I don't know why it died. One came up to surface in the water and a bee came. Oh, I saw it happen, I wouldn't have believed it myself. A bee came and stung him right in the face and he instantly died. And the third one got up out of the pond and crawled away, never to be seen again, presumably taken by a bird. And the permit was quite expensive, and then each turtle cost $50 a throw. So after spending $150 on the actual turtles, plus the expense of the permit, which I think was another $300, and then my daughter's being really distressed at losing all 3 little pet turtles. They were tiny, they were beautiful. I gave that up as I was a bad turtle mummy and I wasn't meant to have turtles. But I was just thinking while reading about Achilles, perhaps I should get one again for my front pond, but it's a bit tragic when all it takes is for a bee to sting the little tiny turtle for it to die. So no, we won't be wasting money on pets that are not actually able to survive for very long. Or maybe I was just unlucky, like I am with many, many things. Bo's preening his tail, he's got it all fanned out, and then he nibbles it all along, and then he pulls it back in a curve, and then he mouths it all the way, and then he lets it go. And the look of joy in his face and concentration is delightful. You're a sweet little bird, little Bo. You really are. And you too, Kenny. You're both very sweet. Right. A short funeral address written and read in a trembling voice by Larry, made the occasion a memorable one. It was only marred by Roger, who, in spite of all my protests, insisted on wagging his tail throughout the burial service. Not long after Achilles had been taken from us, I obtained another pet from the Rose-Beetle man. This time it was a pigeon. He was still very young and had to be force-fed on bread and milk and soaked corn. He was the most revolting bird to look at, with his feathers pushing through the wrinkled scarlet skin mixed with the horrible yellow down that covers baby pigeons and makes them look as though they have been peroxiding their hair. Baby birds can be really quite hideous. But look how beautiful they are when they have their full adult plumage, and how wonderful they really are. Right. Owing to his repulsive and obese appearance, Larry suggested we call him Quasimodo. And liking the name without realizing the implications, I agreed. For a long time after he could feed himself, and when all his feathers had grown, Quasimodo retained a sprig of yellow down on his head, which gave him the appearance of a rather pompous judge wearing a wig several sizes too small. Owing to his unorthodox upbringing and the fact that he had no parents to teach him the facts of life, Quasimodo became convinced that he was not a bird at all and refused to fly, a bit like my Charlie. Instead, he walked everywhere. If he wanted to get onto a table or a chair, he stood below it, ducking his head and cooing in a rich contralto until someone lifted him up. He was always eager to join us in anything we did, and would even try to come for walks with us. I love that. I miss when I used to walk my previous dog, Bella Rosa, my Pomeranian. And I'd look back, be walking down here, and I'd look back and I had all 4 cats following me and Bella, and we would just walk in a parade around the block. The cats would walk with us most of the way. They'd stop when we got up to the, half of the block. They'd stop and they'd go home on their own. But it was quite a sight to see looking back. Tinkerbell and Penny and Tristan and was it Zulu was around at that time? Yes, Zulu too. All 4 of them following me. Bella didn't seem to mind. It was sweet. Penny liked to walk with me particularly. She would follow me around the garden and around the house too. I miss her. She was a wonderful cat. They were all wonderful cats. What you doing, little Bo? You're getting all agitated now. You going to play with your toy? He says, I've preened. I'm quite contented, Mama. This, however, we had to stop him coming with them on walks. For either you carried him on your shoulder, which was risking an accident to your clothes, or else you let him walk behind. I actually had a little wooden perch for Charlie because she shat constantly. So I'd walk her on the kind of a wand, and then when she shat, it would avoid my clothes, and When she was scared, she'd flutter up to my shoulder and sit under my neck, depending if there was strange dogs or something freaking her out when we walked around the neighbourhood. But she liked sitting on the perch, and then I would have Beauregard in one hand and Charlie in the other, and we'd walk around like that. It was quite delightful, quite delightful. And we never ever got swooped by the magpies or any other birds, because they'd be so astonished to see me with a rainbow lorikeet on a perch in my hand that they would all look at me, the wild birds, like, what's that? What is she doing? They never ever tried to harm us. It was quite delightful. If you let him walk and then you had to slow down your own pace to suit his, for should you get too far ahead, you would hear the most frantic and imploring coos and turn round to find Quasimodo running desperately after you, his tail wagging seductively, his iridescent chest pouted out with indignation at your cruelty. Quasimodo insisted on sleeping in the house. No amount of coaxing or scolding would get him to inhabit the pigeon loft I had constructed for him. He preferred to sleep on the end of Margot's bed. Eventually, however, he was banished to the drawing-room sofa, for if Margot turned over in bed at night, Quasimodo would wake, hobble up the bed, and perch on her face, cooing loudly and lovingly. Oh. It was Larry who discovered that Quasimodo was a musical pigeon. Not only did he like music, but he actually seemed to recognise two different varieties, the waltz and the military march. For ordinary music, he would waddle as close to the gramophone as possible, sit there with pouting chest, eyes half closed, purring softly to himself. But if the tune was a waltz, he would move round and round the machine, bowing and twisting and cooing tremulously. For a march, on the other hand, a salsa for preference, he drew himself up to his full height and inflated his chest and stamped up and down the room while his coo became so rich and throaty that he seemed in danger of strangling himself. He never attempted to perform these actions for any other kind of music than marches and waltzes. Should try that on my boys. Occasionally, however, if he had not heard any music for some time, he would, in his enthusiasm at hearing the gramophone, do a march for a waltz, or vice versa, but he invariably stopped and corrected himself halfway through. One sad day we found on waking Quasimodo that he had duped us all, for there among the cushions lay a glossy white egg. Charlie did that to me too, laid her egg on 28th of December. What year was it now? I'm trying to remember. 2020. I'd had her for 3 years, didn't know she was female. Laid eggs. That was quite a shock. Quite a shock. Very unusual Christmas, New Year's present too. An egg from my pet bird. He never quite recovered from this. He became embittered, sullen, and started to peck irritably if you attempted to pick him up. And then he laid another egg, and his nature changed completely. He, or rather she, became wilder and wilder, treating us as though we were her worst enemies, slinking up to the kitchen door for food as if she feared for her life. Not even the gramophone would tempt her back into the house. The last time I saw her, she was sitting in an olive tree, cooing in the most pretentious and coy manner, while further along the branch, a large and very masculine-looking pigeon twisted and cooed in a perfect ecstasy of admiration. For some time the Rose-Beetle man would turn up at the villa fairly regularly with some new addition to my menagerie. A frog, perhaps, or a sparrow with a broken wing. One afternoon, Mother and I, in a fit of extravagant sentimentalism, bought up his entire stock of rose-beetles, and when he had left, let them all go in the garden. For days the villa was full of rose-beetles, crawling on the beds, lurking in the bathroom, banging against the light at night, and falling like emeralds into our laps. The last time I saw the Rose-Beetle man was one evening when I was sitting on a hilltop overlooking the road. He had obviously been to some fiesta and had been plied with much wine, for he swayed to and fro across the road, piping a melancholy tune on his flute. I shouted a greeting, and he waved extravagantly without looking back. As he rounded the corner, he was silhouetted for a moment against the pale lavender evening sky. I could see his battered hat with the fluttering feathers, the bulging pockets of his coat, the bamboo cages full of sleepy pigeons on his back, and above his head, circling drowsily round and round, I could see the dim specks that were the rose-beetles. Then he rounded the curve of the road, and there was only the pale sky with a new moon floating in it like a silver feather, and the soft twittering of his flute dying away in the dusk. Right, can't find what I did with my book thingy, what do you call it? Bookmark. Must have left it inside the house. Anyway, it's of no importance. I'll be back tomorrow with chapter 4, A Bushel of Learning. But I must say, I really enjoyed that chapter. It was delightful. It was happy and sweet and childlike and mischievous. A bit sad about the turtle dying though, but these things happen. And a bit sad about his pet pigeon receiving the call of the wild and leaving the nest, so to speak, the human nest, and rejoining with her own species. Sad but happy for her. Charlie never got to have baby birds because Well, the male lorikeet and his mate did used to come and flirt with her outrageously. And as soon as she would see him doing his courtship gesture, she'd go, eck, and run to mama. So she was very much imprinted on me and wanted nothing to do with the males of her own species. So there was that. And these two boys, well, they're boys. They won't be laying any eggs, so they won't be dying in childbed. And no, there won't be any. They probably are quite frustrated sexually, I would think. Maybe that's why they're attacking their own beaks. I've thought about getting them each a mate, but birds are very particular, depending on the breed of bird. Some birds will only mate for life, and it has to be a bird of their choosing. My father had a pet cockatoo, and he decided after he'd brought it to New Zealand that it was time that she started to breed. I think she was about 20 years old at that time. And no, she was so imprinted on him, and he couldn't get her to show any interest in any of the, I don't know where he found them. No, that's right. I think he took her to the zoo to have access to male cockatoos. But the zoologist or the animal behaviourist had to explain to him that cockatoos have to choose their own mate, and they're very fussy and particular. So although they presented quite a few males to Cheeky, she was not interested in any of them. And then they worked out, they said, she's probably imprinted on you because you've had her since she was a newly hatched chick. So she thinks of you as her mate or her partner, and will have nothing to do with any of the male birds probably ever. My father was a bit devastated about that. I think he was looking forward to the idea of having her have baby birds, but nope, she wouldn't have a bar of it. And then when he migrated back over here, which was a terrible mistake in my opinion, he couldn't bring Cheeky back here because of agriculture and fisheries wouldn't allow it. They said no, cockatoos that have gone to foreign countries, it's a risk of them bringing back disease that can wipe out the native cockatoos. So they wouldn't allow him to bring her back. So he had to sell her, and I was livid. By that stage she was about 35. And I said, how can you just give away your daughter like that? She's like a daughter to you, she's your bird. Anyway, he was quite prosaic about it and said she'll probably have a better life, staying there with someone else. And anyway, I had to give up my horse when I came here, so I did know the terrible grief and the wrench that it is to lose one of your beloved pets. But yeah, I thought that was a ridiculously unfair regulation because there's hardly any other cockatoos in New Zealand. What diseases was she going to get to bring back here? It's just absurdism and bureaucracy just gone mad. They did the same thing with Crystal's rabbits. It's just madness. Both rabbits were desexed, so couldn't breed anyway, and yet they made us move them on when she went to the UK, Ireland and England. It was dreadful that was. They were fully vaccinated against all the diseases that rabbits do tend to get. Anyway, that was also terrible grief. It took me a long time to overcome that actually, even though they weren't even my rabbits but my daughter's. I was a very good grandma to those rabbits. She used to bring them here sometimes when she had to go away or when she was going to be too busy with work, and I put them in a little, Crystal had a little pen that you put together, you know, I think it was meant for dogs and cats actually. And we'd set it up here in the back garden, put the bunnykins in, and they'd lop around, and I'd feed them bamboo leaves, and oh, they were happy here. They were really happy. And then at night I'd bring them in and they'd sleep in their little wide kind of fencing, but their little beds we had for them in the back bedroom. So that back bedroom, which is my jewellery studio that now houses Kermie and Bo, was Charlie's bedroom for her entire life here. And it was the rabbit's bedroom, and it was even the birthing room when Penny had her kittens, and for her Trixie, it was their labour ward as well. That bedroom's seen a lot of fecundity of the animal kind. But anywho, so on that note, I bid you good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are on planet Earth, space-time continuum. Have a beautiful day, and I guess I better go and make myself a nice cup of tea and some lunch, something for lunch. Don't know what I'm going to have, but I'll work it out, people of Earth. So, Goddess bless. Bye for now.